ending 1 minute at a time.
I was blind, but now I see.
Working jobs we hate, so we buy shit we don't need.
Ideas are brittle.
If you had one shot, everything I'd ever read, heard, seen was now organized and available.
Now you fucking khakis.
Life moves pretty fast.
The Biohacking Secret Show.
What's up, biohackers? In this interview, I sit down with Victor Sagalovsky and Robert Slovak, who are two of the world's leading experts in deuterium depleted water. Robert Slovak has brought a number of health breakthroughs to the market, starting with the Ketone purified seawater ampules, molecular hydrogen tablets, and he helped design one of the first countertop reverse osmosis filtration devices. Victor Sagalovsky was born in the Soviet Union and immigrated over here with his family at the age of 7. I'm saying over here like everybody lives in the United States. I know a bunch of you guys are in different parts of the world. So he immigrated with his family to the United States at the age of 7. He started out in his early 20s as an innovator in plant-based culinary arts and opened the first organic gourmet raw food restaurant in North America in 1995. He's the author of Gold, Catalyst of Radiant Health, a book about the history and science and medicinal benefits of gold. And he is adept at gold alchemy and the making of ORMs, which stands for orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. His theory, entitled The Endogenous Radiation Damage Theory of Aging, proposes that our biggest obstacle to longevity is excess deuterium and other damaging isotopes on the planet and in the body. And when this is properly managed, we will radically extend our lifespans. In 2018, he co-founded and is the current CEO of Light Water Scientific, dedicated to the research, development, and production of the most deuterium-depleted water on Earth. And he is actively working to unravel the secrets of becoming superhuman. As a thought leader in the deuterium depletion lifestyle, he has authored the definitive history of this incredible discovery, which may go down as one of the most significant contributions to human health. Guys, I have had a bunch of you asking me to dig into deuterium depleted water for a while now. I've done a little bit of research, but I wanted to really go deep with these guys, and I thought you would get a kick out of it. Shortly after the interview, I ended up picking up 8 cases of the light water, 10 parts per million bottles on auto ship, and we had them set up a discount code. If any of you guys listen to the science, get as excited about it as I did, and decide that you would like to lower the deuterium levels in your body, that discount code is BIOHACKS, BIOHACKS, and you can pick up that light water, the same one, 10 parts per million that I got, if you feel so inspired, at www.drinklightwater.com. That's DRINKLITEWATER.com. And without further ado, please sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Robert Slovak and Victor Sagalovsky. Victor Sagalovsky, Robert Slovak, welcome to the Biohacking Secret Show.
Thanks, Anthony.
I'm excited to chat with you guys. I've had a lot of our listeners nudging me to dig into the world of deuterium depleted water, and both of you guys have spent a long time here. We were talking before we hit record about Victor and Robert, your background with reverse osmosis and the water sciences. Maybe you guys could give our listeners just a little bit of backstory to catch them up to speed on sort of your relationship to deuterium depleted water and what got you here today.
Well, I'm older, so maybe I'll take the first shot. I have a longer bio than Victor. And I just recently turned 75, so wow. I've been in the water thing for a very long time. And it started with really our very serious involvement in the development of this reverse osmosis technology, which has, of course, gone viral worldwide. And my brother and I were water scientists most of our career. And when we sold our company and retired, we really weren't retired, and you'll probably figure that out too. You will never retire. and so we went out into the world to bring technology to the world. And I ended up in Brazil and had an amazing experience doing research and discovered something that was life-changing, as well as something that drove me into the health and wellness area. And that was the discovery of something we just spoke about, which was Canton marine plasma, the little glass ampules with an amazing history of this seawater substance. And, I don't know how much experience you had, but that product came out in 1897 the first time in those
this was
little ampules.
From Rene Quinton, right?
Rene Canton in French, okay?
Canton. Just butchered it.
So I came back and brought that to the United States in 2004, and then participated in taking it worldwide. And I'm very close to the Laboratoires Canton, and that drove me into speaking engagements, conferences, the whole story of health and wellness. Most of it was medically oriented instead of the biohacking scene, which hadn't developed that then. And then I started to get into other aspects of water and helped develop the hydrogen tablet in 2010. Built that into the market, and now hydrogen, beyond my expectations, has become a very, very serious health supplement. And I don't have to tell you, there's 1,000 studies on molecular hydrogen. After that, I think Victor and I have known each other for a number of years before we started to overlap with our interest in this emerging area of deuterium depletion. And we try not to focus on like the water, like as some supplement or like NAD plus or something. It's not about the water. That just helps you get to where you want to get to, called depleting your deuterium, okay, from your body. That's the game. And deuterium depleted water happens to make the most sense in helping you get there. But so does the ketogenic diet. So does other strategies of health. But we're here to show the world that it is very significant. Perhaps, we actually call it the most significant health and medical discovery of our time. And one would think, wow, how come you're not blasting this all over the place? And one of the main reasons is that there's not enough deuterium depleted water in the world for many more than 30,000 people, okay? So that won't even get you the first 2 apartment buildings in New York City. So you're restricted. And we want to focus on the people who appreciate it the most, want it the most, need it the most, etc. So we're very quiet, and we're going nice and slowly in introducing this to the world. And we got together. Victor happens to be Russian, of Russian origin. And I realized that Russia was where all the discovery took place in the late 50s and early 60s about deuterium depletion. And he will talk about that because he is very intimate with it and wrote an excellent little guidebook on the whole story of deuterium. It's published on our website. And we just took off. We just said, hey, we got to know about this. And he said, you're a water technologist. I'm a technologist, and I speak Russian. Let's go. And so we headed off in just January 2019. And the rest is history. We brought the technology and the water, et cetera, et cetera. And we can talk about that as time goes on. I turned it over to Victor.
Yeah, before we dive into a bunch of questions that in cans of worms that were opened up there, Victor, please give us your introduction and share that with the listeners.
Well, I first found out about deuterium depleted water in about 2004. So this is something I've been after for a while. And but as far as myself, I'm kind of old school biohacker, and even when I was young, in my early 20s, in the early 90s, I started the very first organic raw food restaurant in the United States. So I've always been always been a health seeker. I've done a lot of different stuff, but as it pertains to deuterium depleted water and this particular thing is that I was always trying to figure out, the mechanisms of aging. Even when I was a kid, I was kind of like an armchair gerontologist, right? So I'm always, my mentors have always taught me to go and, find the upstream solution. Don't go looking for the Band-Aids. Just go to the source. It's a little harder to get there. You got to hike longer. The trail may not have been blazed, but there's some information you could gather that'll show you how to get there. So I understood the science of this, right away of the deuterium depletion, and it also was validated, or I could say validated. I could say reinforced by some extraterrestrial type of information that was also taken down and written in books. That's and then just in 2007 there was a paper that was written that explains how deuterium actually damages the mitochondria. Now we can go back to the very beginning, and at least the beginning of this discovery. And what's exciting about it is it hasn't even been 100 years. Okay, it hasn't even been 100 years since the discovery of hydrogen having two isotopes, actually three. But that's so we're really standing on the shoulders of giants here, and we really discovered something amazing, as Robert said. Actually, not about the water, but it's about depleting deuterium from your body and what happens when you have less deuterium in your body. So this has brought us on this whole journey. So when I was in 2004, when I read my first article about deuterium depletion, I tried for a decade to figure out how to do it myself. I figured it can't be that hard, So I failed pretty miserably until I found the scientists in Russia that were really working on this at a whole other level, at a much higher technical and industrial level. So, and then we went over there and we started importing the water here.
So for the listeners who aren't familiar, and I'm admittedly a bit of a newbie when it comes to deuterium, what we're talking about is an isotope of hydrogen. And can you explain a little bit of the negative effects deuterium has in the body as it pertains to the mitochondria and energy production, the electron transport chain? What's going on there, and why do people want?
Yeah, I will cut right to the chase. Okay, everything that uses oxygen as a strategy for life has mitochondria. Okay, and that mitochondria produces ATP. That ATP is produced in what's called, it's in the electron transport chain, but it's in the final step of the electron transport chain. And that is the ATP synthase nanomotor. It's a motor and a generator. Okay, so what it does is it shuttles protons. The protons spin the generator, and the generator produces ATP. It recycles ADP, adds ATP, produces ATP from ADP, and then you have fuel for your biology to breathe, to live, to pump your blood, everything. So now that motor spins by protons, okay? But every 15 seconds, that proton is replaced by what's known as a deuteron. And a deuteron is a deuterium, essentially, without an electron. But what the significance here is that the deuterium, it's still hydrogen, but it's twice the weight because it has that neutron. So when it hits your motor, it causes it to stutter, it jams, no ATP is produced, there's mechanical wear and tear that eventually causes cell death.
Okay,
and this is the function of deuterium. It's really an anti-life element because the body it's mistaken for real hydrogen, which is protium, which is most hydrogen in the universe, and so it'll still bond with oxygen to create water, right? So you have this. So one out of every 6,600 roughly molecules of water in nature is, instead of being an H2O, it's a HDO. And that D is deuterium. And that D gets into everywhere, and it's not compatible with the way we produce energy. So that's why we slow down, we age. This is the only reason we age, but this is one of those upstream reasons. And this has been being validated by science more and more so now. So it's really exciting because there's a new field that's emerging based on this called deuteronomics.
Okay,
And
that makes sense.
deuteronomics was the term deuteronomics and depletion was introduced by one of our colleagues, Laszlo Boros at UCLA, a doctor, and he's also Hungarian. And Hungary is one of the big countries that adopted the research and development of deuterium depleted water and its health effects.
Well, he solved a really important riddle for me, at least, and I think for everybody, because when you look at, if you study biochemistry, and you look at the Krebs cycle, if you're familiar with that, right? It's very complex. So you would think, why do we have to have all these complex pathways to create energy? Because everything in nature wants the quickest, most direct route, right? We want the path of least resistance. But in order for our bodies to create energy, we have this Sangiorgi cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle, citric acid cycle. It's a very complex way of reducing food that we put into our bodies down to the atomic level, molecular down to the atomic, to the proton level. But it's a very complex cycle. So when I started studying this in the late 90s, I was always wondering, why is the most complex thing, the most complex way to make energy is what we use, but everything else is nature is so easy. And Laszlo Boros basically said, the reason it's so difficult because these are series of gates that are keeping deuterium out of your nanomotors. Mm. So we have an ability to recycle this deuterium, but that breaks down over time.
And how did we come across deuterium depleted water? And there's a little bit of background, like there's a good amount of research showing some of the benefits of, like, let's say, silica rich water. And then, when they're studying some of these blue zones and long living cultures like the Hunza, they're looking at, like, is it because they eat apricot seeds? Is it because their water is rich in silica? Can you tell us a little bit of the background with deuterium? Was it something that occurred in nature? How did they stumble upon this?
You know what? There was a young gerontologist, doctor in Tomsk in Siberia. And in there it's a big science university, big college town essentially in Siberia, and they were trying, and this was in the mid 50s, and they were trying to figure out why these populations in Siberia, in the Altai and other places, why these people had 40 times more centenarians than anywhere else in the Soviet Union or any of the republics, right? And they were trying to hone in on it. It took them a couple years, and they figured, it must be the water. So they got some money to drill. So the water that they drink is this water that in the spring it melts. It's glacial melt essentially, right? So to make a long story short, because it's a long fun story, and you can read about it on our website. But to make a long story short, they discovered that these people were living longer. These are harsh environments, because their deuterium was about between 10 and 15% lower, and so they validated this with some other populations. So it's a different type of blue zone, right? But in places that you have a hydrological cycle that is away from the ocean, and you're high in the mountains, or you're at a northern latitude, like in Siberia, your water is going to be naturally depleted about 10 to 15% less than the average everywhere else. So if you're in LA or Chicago, you're going to be at about 150 parts per million of deuterium. But if you're in Antarctica, you're going to have 89 ppm. Okay. But if you're in the Himalayas or in these northern latitudes, where you're going to be like in the upper 120s all the way up until the low 140s, And even a 5% reduction physiologically is huge. So these people, so if you go to some places where people have, you measure the deuterium in some of these mountain towns, and then you get your answer why the people look so hardy and healthy, because their water is 10% reduced to the median average.
It makes sense.
And they have that, and they drink that their entire lives. So you can imagine.
Right. There's also the part of me that's over the past few decades, you start to become a little bit skeptical, especially as marketing has sort of permeated science. And then we see some of the things going on today where true science is just being utterly trashed. But when you talk about Siberia and things like that, I'm also thinking about, well, how did they isolate for the benefits of cold thermogenesis and altitude and adaptogens like shilajit and rhodiola, in addition to the deuterium? Because those are things that are somewhat unique to that part of the world.
Deuterium depletion makes you a lot more impervious to stress, for one. Okay. That's been proven. I mean, your stress response is amazing. It's through the roof. So that's one thing. It just makes you harder in that sense. Second, those people over there, it's genetic for and you live with the land and the seasons, and when you live like that, you're in harmony with nature. And so nature kind of helps you out in that respect.
And so is it safe to say that these cultures drinking deuterium depleted water have better redox status, higher voltage in their body, and better electron flow? Or is
absolutely 100%?
What's going on there?
100%, because you have more proton flow when you're now. What things can you do to help with deuterium depleted lifestyle except drinking water that's going to get you depleted? Sun exposure, grounding, fresh air. These all improve mitochondrial health. So this is all part of mitochondrial health, right? More ketogenic diet, because this is creating the ATP the right way to have less impact. So less wear and tear on the organism, right? Because there's going to be aging, but it's less wear and tear that we want. So these people, even though they live in a harsher environment that from the outside looks like it creates more wear and tear on them, they're able to fortify themselves through a different strategy. But they don't even realize that deuterium depletion is what they got going on. Because when you look at the Sherpas in the Himalayas, they go up to very high elevation. They go up to the top of Everest, close to 25,000 feet and up. And you could see that they go up there without oxygen. They go to the summit without oxygen. And most people need supplementary oxygen. They would pass out and die. And the reason is because they're slightly deuterium depleted. They're drinking water from that glacier that's in the upper 120s. So what's happening is you have more proton motive force in the mitochondria, creates a 30 to 50% greater utilization of oxygen. So they're able to use oxygen better up there. So the experiment that I'd like to see is if you acclimate up there. And what does acclimate mean? It's not only elevational acclimation, it's deuterium level. So if you acclimate to a deuterium level, you get down. Like I'm very good at hypoxic environments. I can go, and I've partly genetic. I don't know why, but I could always go to higher elevations and just go running up there, and it just felt great. So, but that's what it's going to allow you to do, is because when you have less deuterium, everything lightens up essentially.
Mm-hmm. And when you guys are referring to your website, we're talking about drinklightwater.com, right? Yes.
Yeah, and it's LITE.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
instead of LIGHT, it's LITE water.
Yeah, so for those of you guys listening and ladies that want to check that out, drinklightwater.com is what we're referencing when we kind of point to their web presence. So from what you guys know, we've talked about deuterium depletion. We've got the work of Gerald Pollack with his book, The Fourth Phase of Water. There's a lot of interesting research around structure and drinking spring water and some of the health benefits there. We've got silica, which I mentioned earlier, and some of the benefits of silica-rich water. We know that toxins like fluoride and chlorine and some of the things that are in municipal waters have a negative impact. And then from piggybacking on some of the work of our mutual friend Tyler LeBaron, we know that hydrogen-rich water tends to have health benefits. How would you guys rank in descending order the most important components of healthy and longevity boosting water?
I'd say it's a mixed bag. I certainly deuterium depleted water leads the race to longevity and supplying the energy to ward off chronic disease. I'd say it's in a class of its own, almost unbelievably so. And then with my many decades in studying water contaminants and water purification, etc. Certainly, freedom from contaminants is a very important part of health, etc., in your water and your food, but not at this level. It's something very special. When you get into structured water, something that's very dear to my heart as well, I think it's really important. Like, one has to be careful that you believe you can drink structured water and it just kind of stays structured throughout your gastrointestinal tract, which goes through many radical pH changes and so on, many biochemical assaults, so to speak. And then it just nicely, conveniently goes into your cells as structured water. Your cells do the structuring. And even though, Gerald Pollack is a friend of both Victor and myself, we often, bring that up to him that so many people have taken advantage of his science and going, we have fourth phase water, we have easy water, etc. And it's really not true. It's all up to your body to make it that way. But at the core of almost everything, I think it's hard to argue that the mitochondria is the key organelle in the whole cellular space. I mean, it supplies the energy. Nothing happens. You can't blink your eyes without ATP. So it's the key thing, and it is not just a metabolic thing as was first researched, but it's very much a DNA thing too. It affects lots of DNA processes, and I'm sure that the story has not been written on the benefits of deuterium depletion. Most people, one of my concerns is that people think deuterium depletion is just a matter of taking something that's like a supplement, like you want to take NAD plus or AMPK or any of the mitochondrial activators. It's not like that. It requires an incredible discipline. You have to really replace at least 90% of the water you normally consume. And not just in drinking water, but the water you consume in, if you like beer, if you like energy drinks, if you like almond milk, that water, if you like Starbucks, if you like all of life's bounties, then you have to replace that water consciously. To do a good job of depleting your body of deuterium, you have to replace that water with deuterium depleted water.
So for someone like me or our listeners that are, buying into the science of deuterium depleted water, where is the best place to start?
I would say certainly if someone were to email us, we would send them, first start on the website just to get a feel of it. And then it would be good to contact us by email, and our emails are available on the website or our customer service, and just say, hey, can you send me your core files? And both Victor and I have our own little set of core files that really bring a person from the kindergarten level up to the graduate school level. And we also have a presentation on deuterium depleted water that's available, and maybe Victor can tell us what's the easiest way to get our deuterium depletion presentation.
So this isn't something that deuterium depleted water is not something we may have lost Victor due to connectivity or something else going on. But so you can't just go and purchase deuterium depleted water and then drink that, or run your municipal.
It's just that it's only made in basically 3 countries. It's made in Russia, Hungary, and Romania. Okay. And we are those 3 companies, brands. There's only a company in each country. We represent probably the most sophisticated supplier and provider of deuterium depleted water, which is the Russians who started the whole thing. And it's the most advanced facility, and it also makes the lowest deuterium water. It doesn't mean you have to take the lowest deuterium water. You can deplete. So we make 2 waters. One is a 10 part per million deuterium. Mm-hmm. That's reduced from 150, which is what most waters in the world are. Then we make also a 5 ppm, a very, very special, difficult water to make in small glass bottles. Actually, there's the 5 ppm glass bottle. You can see the 5 there.
Yeah.
And we also supply the 10 part per million is supplied, you can see the 10 there, in a 2 liter BPA, BPS free bottle. And this is the workhorse because it's less expensive than the shipping of glass, water in glass bottles, etc. What the benefit of having such low ppm? The next best water is like 25 parts per million.
Okay.
And then people sell 50 parts per million and in decreasing price. But we sell this water not to drink directly, but to mix with other water to make the level that we recommend for you. So if you're a biohacker, we're going to, and you're 35 years old, we're going to make one recommendation. Mm-hmm. But if you're 65 years old and you have a chronic disease, we're going to recommend another level. So for instance, if I were to dilute this bottle 1-to-1 with your other favorite water, I don't care what it is, could be bottled water, distilled water, reverse osmosis water. They all have 150, more or less. Mm-hmm. If you were to dilute the 10 part per million with an equivalent amount of 150 part per million, your favorite water, that would make 80 part per million water.
This episode of the Biohacking Secrets Show is brought to you by Veritas Farms and their full line of CBD products, CBD standing for cannabidiol. Now, we are real excited about this partnership because Veritas means truth in Latin, and we are big believers in bringing you guys the truth, not just through this podcast, but by making sure that any products that we share or that we bring on as sponsors are products that we personally use, believe in, and endorse ourselves. And that is the case with Veritas Farms and their full line of CBD products. The reason that they're so great, they are full spectrum hemp products, meaning that they have all of the beneficial phytonutrients that you get in a quality CBD product. 99% of the CBD products on the market are CBD isolate, and they're just being resold, meaning they're coming from a few small manufacturers. They've only got one tiny part of all of the important phytonutrients that you need to get the benefits you want from a CBD product, and they're just a bunch of different companies reselling them. Veritas Farms is vertically integrated, meaning they own the farm. They ensure that there are no pesticides being added. It's organic, and then they control the entire process from harvesting to extraction until that product ends up at your door. That's what I love it. It's kind of like farm to table, but for CBD. And the benefits that I've noticed, my sleep is better. I feel like I get a deeper, more restful night's sleep. I'm less stressed. I never have periods of anxiety. I feel calm and focused throughout the day. And it even decreases inflammation when I have flights or other things where inflammation is an inevitable part of life. You take a little extra CBD and it can be very helpful for stress, anxiety, sleep, and that inflammation. So if you guys want to check it out, we've arranged a 15% discount for you guys. To get that, you can go to theveritasfarms.com/biohacks. I'll spell it out. THEVERITASFARMS.com/BIOHACKS to save 15%. Check out the Veritas Farms CBD. You guys are going to absolutely love it.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the process, let's say I'm being selfish, but our listeners will get the idea. I would go to drinklightwater.com with LITE. I'd email you guys, ask for your core files, kind of give you my age, health status, so on and so forth. And then you would be able to recommend, okay, Anthony, if what you're doing right now for the water that you're drinking is you're taking your tap water, you're running it through a Berkey filter to get the junk out, and that's what you're drinking most of the time. I want you to get the 10 part per million bottle from us. You're going to then dilute that as follows and drink it, or is the process a little bit different than that?
No, that's exactly it. Even though, as an aside, and you'll get a kick out of this, I'm not a fan of Berkey, and I'll tell you offline, because it's not for this presentation. I'll tell you offline some of the things I discovered about Berkey, because that's what I do. Okay. And but if you use the Berkey water, you're still going to get the same thing. It's going to be 150 parts per million. If you use the best RO system, it's still going to be 150 parts per million. If you use Mountain Valley bottled water for $15, 3 liters or whatever, it's going to be 150 parts per million. So when we offer a 10 part per million, you can dilute this one the most. Therefore, we don't have to ship as much. Therefore, the cost is less. Mm-hmm. That's the real practical advantage of these two waters. Okay.
All right. So that makes sense. And
some of the Canadian waters, bottled waters, anything glacial sourced or lower, there's in Alaska, there's a water, it's a 140, so you can get some bottled water that's a little lower, but generally, it's all going to be a 150.
Yeah. Okay. At our facility where we have our instrument to measure deuterium in people's saliva, and it's part of the service that we offer, because when you undertake something as serious a biohack as this, you want to know how you've done, like after 1, 2, or 3 months. Hey, how am I doing? Mm-hmm. And if we can tell if you're sneaking a 6-pack of beer every Friday night at the basketball game. Okay. Hey, you're not telling us the truth. We can tell. And we have a little kit that we send people if they want. And that is a service we provide so you can monitor and know what your deuterium is.
So this is something that our listeners and myself can do at home. We can order this kit from you and measure the deuterium levels in our body before and after to see it trending downward over time.
Yes. And Victor, maybe you can tell them about our test.
Yeah. So you can get a pretty good, pretty close to knowing what your body's deuterium level if you test the saliva. Okay. So we've been working on this for a year, so we can provide this, and it's almost ready to launch. It's actually we're in a beta launch. So it's very simple. We send you a kit, you do follow the instructions and send it back, and then we can tell you what your now. Okay, so most people, we could tell you what your starting is, or after 3-4 months, assume your deuterium level is going to be about the same as the water that you're drinking wherever you are. If you have some health challenges and you eat a lot of carbs and you eat a lot, 5-6 meals a day or always snacking, that's going to contribute to your deuterium level. So you might be 155, 156, and that's getting into dangerous territory. But for the most part, people are around 150 or whatever the water is where they're at. So you can do it before test just to get a baseline if you want, but usually you do it after 3 months in and see if you've gotten down to about 120, about where you want. That's about where you want to be. That's where you start actually seeing the difference in seeing some of the benefits from.
And if you have a therapeutic requirement, which we're always hesitant to go into because it starts rocking the wrong boats, Anthony, as you know. If you have a therapeutic one, then you may want to go down to the 80 part per million level.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so in addition to testing deuterium levels in the saliva, are there other indications of mitochondrial health, energy production, longevity that you see improve as people lower their deuterium levels? Like, do we see telomere length increase? Do we see it become easier for people to fast? Do the breath hold times increase? Phase angle? What are some of the other things that you guys track to confirm that there are additional health benefits of depleting deuterium in the body?
Well, the primary study that I keep going back to, and there's a lot. There's actually deuterium. I set up a little site called deuteriumdepletion.org where I put all the studies up. But so there's quite a good number of them. Most of them in Eastern Europe. But I keep going back to the one because there's been a lot of things, studies done on it. But I keep going back to the one that showed the Russians did that showed the increase in the amount 30 days on deuterium on deuterium depleted water, reducing the deuterium levels. After 30 days, they were able to do the same amount of work, on a treadmill or a bicycle and utilize half the amount of oxygen. Okay. So that's the one I'd like to replicate here. And then there's so many others. I mean, there's methylation pathways that when you drop deuterium levels in your body, all kinds of things are affected. But like I said, it's exciting. It's very new. There's still a lot of studies yet to be done to show the efficacy
telomeres.
Of this. Telomeres is one. We just don't know enough. But I will say this: Robert and I got into this because we believed in the science. Even before we ourselves drank the water, we brought a container of the water and we never drank it just because we believe in the science. And the science has not let us down and has not let us or anybody else down, actually. So this is one of those times where the science checks out. So
I can say that at 75, I absolutely, and anyone that who knows me will tell you that Robert has the energy level of a 40-year-old.
A healthy 40-year-old. Yeah.
Perhaps I used to joke in my earlier presentations, and this is just for humor's sake, that I have the energy of a 19-year-old. But since deuterium depleted water, I now tell my audience I have the energy of a 9-year-old.
So that's something that would appeal to a large number of people in society, from athletes to individuals that just want to have the highest quality of life as they age.
It's going to change sports. Absolutely.
It's a new standard in water purification. Unfortunately, it's a very difficult standard to meet.
And how far off are we from having technology that can be purchased and remain in the home for depleting deuterium in the water? That where you could run your tap water through it.
For a home unit, we're about as far as we were when Edison was trying to invent the light bulb and it was still gas lamps. We had gas lamps. So
you're telling me there's a chance right around the corner, huh?
We even had electricity, but we didn't have a light bulb. So it's going to take somebody that's next Tesla or Edison to figure out how to make a countertop unit, because what you're dealing with here is removing. There's in a liter. Imagine a liter of water, and you have 6 drops in there. Okay, and they're somewhere. Those 6 drops are somewhere in that liter, and there are many places, and these 6 drops are HDO, okay, and they're not that different from regular water until they get down into your mitochondria where you feel it. So to remove that, it's not an easy thing to separate that. So there's no membrane or nanotechnology that will do it. You have to do it in a whole different way, at least right now, until some brilliant genius comes along and says, "Hey, I have a countertop unit," and then that will shift humanity because then everybody will have the ability to quickly reduce their deuterium levels.
If you went to the facility, you'd think you were on one of Elon Musk's rocket launch pads. Okay, that's how elaborate and complex it is. And it's good. The process itself is called vacuum assisted fractional distillation rectification. Okay, if you think you can fit that on your counter. It's very elaborate, and that's why only 3 countries make it.
Beautiful. So this is something that I had just kind of digging around. There's a product that a number of clients that we've worked with, athletes, have used and raved about. I've used it myself and certainly noticed the benefits, called Cell Food. Are you guys familiar with Cell Food?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of talk about this right now because he uses deuterium as
exactly. Yeah, and I've personally experienced the benefits. I know a lot of athletes that have used it and found that their endurance improves. They feel better on it. And there's I've come across studies online in PubMed with yeast and worms showing increased longevity with the consumption of deuterium. Have you guys dug into that? And what are your thoughts on that?
Those are bogus. Those have been kind of proven as bogus. Okay. And the amount of deuterium, which is in the form of deuterium sulfate in cell food, and I would agree with you on the benefits of cell food. The amount of deuterium, because you don't take a lot of cell food in volume.
Right.
So the amount of deuterium is just a speck. I don't know. I'm not convinced they understand why they put deuterium in. Mm-hmm. And because deuterium, when added to things, and it's often added to pharmaceuticals to slow down their reactivity. Mm-hmm. Deuterated pharmaceuticals are very common. You can just look it up. For instance, many chemotherapy drugs have added deuterium to slow down the toxicity effect of the drug. Mm-hmm. So
called the kinetic isotope effect. So that's where when they first discovered deuterium and they first made heavy water, it tastes like regular water, and but it was very different. And one of the things they observed, not other than that, it'll kill a mammal after 3-4 days if it's just pure heavy water. Yeah. But actually, even just 30% heavy water. But one of the things they observed is that the bond between if it's a carbon deuterium bond, it breaks 9 times slower than a hydrogen carbon bond. So you can imagine it slows things down.
So in as a water scientist, I can tell you that I rank, and so do other water scientists who are familiar with deuterium, I rank deuterium as one of the most serious contaminants that can exist in water. Mm. Okay, we don't think of it as that way, even though, and there's only 6 drops. But if I gave you if we sent you a bottle of water that was mostly deuterium water, okay, not just 6 drops, but the whole bottle was just HDO. If we sent this to you and you were drinking it while you were doing our podcast, you wouldn't finish because you'd be dead by the end. That's how serious deuterium really is. We don't think of it. We're just, through evolution, we've learned to deal with it, but it's an uncomfortable contaminant to the most important thing in your body, which is your mitochondria.
Right. And I've certainly wondered, knowing what we now know about hormesis, is it possible that, in the acutely increasing deuterium by just a couple drops with cell food may even cause positive adaptations in the body? That
go to the head of the class. You absolutely could be right.
Yeah, we might just be slightly poisoning ourselves, but that causes resilience.
Yeah,
and that's what's responsible.
It's very possible. I agree with you. It's very
possible. We have way more tritium. We have more tritium and deuterium on our planet than we've ever had before. So we better adapt to it.
Well, this is fascinating. So, I mean, I'm planning on picking up a few bottles of the 10 ppm light water and sending you guys an email to figure out exactly what would be the best process.
Why don't we tell you so the listeners know?
Yeah, I'd love it. And I'm sure,
Okay.
I mean, I know you piqued a bunch of listeners' curiosity about Berkey. And I know you don't want to trash Berkey, and you're being a classy individual. So I don't want you to do that. But whatever you're willing to share, if anything, I'm sure there's a bunch of people listening that are curious and probably have Berkey machines.
Are you asking me outright?
I am. Yeah.
When I've been in the business for almost 50 years in the water testing business. And in fact, the standards by which all water purification systems are rated, called regulations of point of use and point of entry drinking water systems, et cetera. I was part of the team at National Sanitation Foundation, NSF, in Michigan, who wrote all of those standards. There was like a team of 7 of us. And I could not understand why somebody asked me, because I mostly focus on reverse osmosis technology. Someone wrote in and said, what do you think of the Berkey? And I thought, you know what? I've always kind of recommended the Berkey too. It looked well made. It used a conventional carbon block. I mean, there's 50 Berkeys out there, from my opinion. But when somebody asked me, I said, yeah, I better really look into this responsibly. When I looked into it, I was actually shocked because I couldn't understand why Berkey, one, most of the Berkey systems couldn't be sold in California, okay? And two, Berkey did not use any one of the 3 national standard companies that do the analysis and testing of a health product, okay? When you remove contaminants, I'm going, well, that's not even possible. I mean, Berkey is like almost a Mercedes-Benz of carbon filters. So I started looking further into their testing, and I found that they chose some very obscure company in New Jersey to do their product testing. And then I looked at the data very carefully, and I said, there's no carbon filter in the world that is capable of doing this, no matter how good it is. I mean, carbon has its limitations. It can't remove fluoride from the water. It can't remove arsenic from the water, but it can't remove heavy metals, for instance. But this removed all of them, and it said 99%. I'm going, oh boy, I found something that's not right about Berkey.
They do have a fluoride filter that you can add, right?
They do have an added fluoride filter, which I'm also against, because fluoride filters happen to use activated alumina, and it gives off aluminum into the water. So that is another topic, okay? That is another topic.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yes. So I called the 3 organizations, which I've done a lot of consulting with, and I said, hey, do you guys have Berkey as a customer? And they said, no, we've always wondered why Berkey never came to the 3 big companies, the only 3 big companies. They chose this obscure laboratory in New Jersey. And I said, I'm going to get their test data. And I searched for months, and I finally found the test protocol. And I was shocked, and I'm going to end here. I was shocked because when you test a product like a filter, you have to test it for its estimated life, that it will remove the contaminants. And when I looked at, so it's typical to have a product that can remove it from 100, 200, 300 gallons of water. But the Berkey didn't say that. The test protocol didn't take it to 100 gallons. Some of the tests, in fact, many of the contaminants, they used a half a liter or 2 liters. And I'm going, what? So it is my intention, I'm going to, maybe in the next few months, write an open letter to just ask Berkey to answer some of the questions that I have. I'm not throwing them under the bus. I need to hear it from them. Why did you do this very different thing as one of the main suppliers of water treatment products?
I think that's fair. And guys, if you're listening to this and you have a Berkey machine, it may not be a bad thing to write a compassionate letter asking some of these same questions, so that it's not just one of us doing this. We all need to raise the level of standards that that these companies are being held to. So having said that, please continue.
Can I add one little thing?
Of
Anthony?
course, please do.
Listen, for your level of guest and audience, If you are interested in removing virtually every category or most of every category of contaminant, here's my rule to every audience I've ever spoken to. There are only two methods to do it: distillation plus activated carbon and reverse osmosis plus activated carbon. I mean, that's for you people. For the average person, maybe they don't care about the things we care about. But, you know, your audience and me, we're biohackers. We want to know that we can remove the pharmaceuticals from water or the radionuclides from water. It may not be in your water, but you want to know that your technologies can do it. And those are the only two.
Absolutely. And so this kind of dovetails nicely into my next question. I had purchased an AquaTrue countertop reverse osmosis machine, and I threw it out within a year because it was a pain to clean. It was getting moldy. Most of it was made from plastic. For those, I mean, I know reverse osmosis, like a whole house unit, is an option. For people who don't want the expense of a whole house unit, is there a brand or a good entry level filtration product?
Okay, very good. You brought up some sensitive things as well as very good things. To have distillation and activated carbon or reverse osmosis activated carbon for the whole house is virtually impossible unless you're Bill Gates. Okay. I mean, and it's a nightmare to service. So forget that. You do need something for the whole house water to protect yourself from certain contaminants, mostly put in by municipal water companies in the shower and bath. You do need that. And that's another topic. But let's take drinking water, which you have to protect yourself from maybe 100 potential contaminants, including the pharmaceuticals, heavy metals, radionuclides, fluoride, the whole gamut. So the AquaTrue is, my brother and I designed the first RO drinking water system back in 1973, okay? And it became the model that still exists today. Some people make ones that are identical to our 1973 model. And we spoke about it, etc. But when I was asked to give the first talk to the autism community, I realized that I had to change my whole talk. This was about 8 years ago. If you have an under sink reverse osmosis system, I can tell your audience I do not recommend it at all. Okay? Even though I was largely responsible for creating the first one. The problem is that the storage tank, which you have under your sink, becomes a microbial incubator. Okay? In 50, 100, 150, 200,000 colony forming units per milliliter of water. If you have a child with autism with a damaged microbiome, he'll never get better if he's drinking that water. So I had to tell an audience of 150 women that you cannot give your child with autism water from your under sink RO. And they were shocked, okay? And they weren't too happy with me because I brought such bad news, and they have enough bad news.
Right.
So I told them, listen, if you have it, you have to drain the tank every single day. The end of the day, when you're done using water, drain the tank. This is the first step. Number two, if your child has serious gut problems, you have to use a small device that you can buy anywhere called a SteriPen to sterilize the water you're giving to your child with autism. So years went by and with this same story until I actually discovered the AquaTrue water purification system, the one that you had such bad luck with. And I believe I added to that design enough to change its entire history, because it has become, interestingly, my favorite water purification system, most practical. And I'm not commenting that I also like distillers and activated carbon as well. But from a sheer consumer friendly, and you didn't seem to have a consumer friendly experience with it, what I favored about it is, one, It removed all the contaminants. It was tested by the top testing agency, IAPMO. It did everything right, and you had access to the container. And I'm in my workspace, and I'm looking at an AquaTrue, which is now going on its 4th year, okay? And it's worked perfect for me. And I test water more than any of your listeners, okay? Mm-hmm. You can understand that. And so I find that just some simple maintenance or preventative things that you do, like maybe once a month you should clean the containers. If you in the RO container, just a cap full of hydrogen peroxide for 10 or 15 minutes, you're done. Okay. So
regular
I don't know why you had
3% food grade.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
3% food grade, and for that application, it wouldn't matter whether it's store bought in that pharmacy. It doesn't matter what it is. It still has the disinfecting power because you're not going to drink that.
Right.
So my other benefit of it is that it's lasted an incredibly long time. It does a great job for its incredibly low price. I don't know of another RO system that would compete with that in terms of its practicality, cost, etc. And I'm not trying to sell you on it or your people on it, but that I've probably been responsible for selling 10,000 of them, okay? And I can say best water purification product with the most favorable feedback I've ever had. And I was taking a chance at it. I didn't design that system. It was designed by somebody who wasn't experienced but was incredibly clever and did something that I thought was brilliant. It's very easy to change filters. You know that, right?
Right, yeah. Okay,
so that's my perspective. And I love the fact that we have a differing opinion of it. That's what's so great about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was back in around the time it came out. I bought one of the first ones, and then it was...
it had some disasters, like any product, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to kind of work the bugs out. So I like the idea of a cap full of hydrogen peroxide once a month. That's easy enough, and you just kind of run the water through, and that cleans it.
Correct. You're good. Now, I don't know. I mean, some people do not realize they have to throw that remaining water away. You did that, didn't you?
Yes.
When you make water, some water is left behind because RO always needs water to remove the contaminants. And that's why it's unlike a carbon filter, which actually continues to accumulate contaminants. The RO membrane, which is the key purification device in it, when you open that up after 5 years or 3 years or 2 years, it looks exactly like the day it was put in. That's the genius of the RO technology. It stays clean and doesn't accumulate contaminants.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to be, and thank you for clarifying that. I want to be respectful.
Sorry to take so much time with that, Victor.
No. It's this is all very helpful. I mean, we've talked about the most important water hack that people could implement with the deuterium depleted water. We've talked about what is the most accessible and practical reverse osmosis countertop filter in the AquaTrue, how to clean it. The last couple questions here, guys, and we'll kind of bring it home.
Just consider this, right? The water that's in your mitochondria, in your cells, okay, in those nano confinements, that's 60 to 70% deuterium depleted. So the water that's running your body is already deuterium depleted. So
explain that, Victor. Tell them why it's deuterium depleted coming out of the mitochondria.
Because all the water that your body makes is not water that you drink. It's actually water that your body made that water. Okay, it takes the proton with the oxygen and it creates water. So when your body when those motor generators, the ATP synthase nanomotor, the smallest biological motor in existence, when it creates an ATP, it also creates water. Okay, and that water is called metabolic water. And by virtue of creating that water, because the cell has tried to keep deuterium out, that water is now 60 to 70% depleted. And that's the water that essentially your body's trying to recycle to keep the deuterium out. So as it keeps recycling it, it's able to keep deuterium lower. So just keep that in mind, that the water that you need to run your mitochondria is not the water that you drink. It's water that is made inside your cells.
Makes sense. Victor, what type of filtration unit do you have in your home?
I just try to go for spring water myself. Okay. If I don't have spring water, I travel a lot, then I buy distilled water in the store. I mix it with that, or I just drink light water straight.
You drink the 10 parts per million straight?
Sometimes, yeah, because I drink, I like milk. So I want to get, I like a 1-to-1 strategy, right? So my strategy is like the therapeutic is somewhere between 1-to-1 to 1-to-4, okay, even 1-to-5. So, but I want to keep my levels under 100. So I want to drink 80 ppm, okay? So in order to drink 80 ppm, I either got to dilute it, or I have to do the math in my head that if I had a half a liter of water today and I had a half a liter of milk or coconut water, or a mix of half liter of milk, half liter of coconut water, and 1 liter of DDW, now I know it balanced out at the end of the day at 80 ppm. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So some people's strategy is to drink 1 5 ppm bottle of water in the morning, and that's it.
Beautiful.
Okay.
And we've talked a little bit about the Kenton. Is it Kenton?
Kenton.
I've called them Quinton ampules for.
Yeah, I use Quinton. I mean, I rarely say that.
Quinton. I'm just butchering it, but so that's one way to remineralize if you're drinking reverse osmosis water.
Yeah, more than remineralize. That contains all minerals and trace elements. So that's the entire periodic table of the elements. And one thing, it's probably the first thing I say at any presentation, that life originated in the ocean, and life evolved in the ocean for 2.5 billion years before leaving it. And I tell my audience, usually doctors, nothing influenced life more than its time in the ocean. And then I asked them, well, what is the ocean? And no one ever answered that in 15 years. And the answer is the ocean is the only solution in the solar system of the entire periodic table.
And so is your blood.
And so is your blood. Your blood contains the same electrolyte proportions as the ocean.
And if it doesn't, you're in trouble.
Correct. The ultimate electrolyte, without question, is seawater.
Yeah, I've got boxes and boxes full of the ampules in the garage, and down here the good folks.
Well, make sure you take it today.
I will. Guys, so listeners, and anyone listening, drinklightwater.com, drinklightwater.com. Robert, Victor, any last recommendations or pieces of advice that you want to leave with our listeners as it pertains to hydration and optimal health and longevity?
Well, I think people should know, and we should have covered it just a little bit before, that if somebody goes on a serious and responsible deuterium depletion program, and I wouldn't treat it like, oh, I think I'll get 2 bottles and try it. It's a waste of money. Don't waste your money. There's not a lot of deuterium depleted water, and there's a lot of people who really need it. So we tell people, learn, read, etc. Don't order, but learn and read and be convinced that this is for you for the long term. And people really should go on. We favor people going on a subscription. And a subscription is 2 packages of 4 of these per month. That's the typical average person's needs. Somebody who's extremely active or an athlete, et cetera, may require more. Maybe a woman or a smaller person might require less. But that gives you 16 liters per month of 10 ppm, which can turn into anything from, if it's 1-to-1, it would be 32 liters you will end up with for your month supply. If it's 2-to-1, you'll get into 48 liters. the more you dilute, the more you will have. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this cost is for a subscription is for each package of 8 liters is $160.
Mm-hmm.
So your guests should understand that if you're serious about deuterium depletion, the most expensive, arguably the most expensive water in the world, and all deuterium depleted water is expensive, you're looking at $320 per month expense to really replace all your water.
Okay. Makes sense. And Victor, you have written a book on this, and you had also mentioned a resource from some otherworldly entities that you said had played a role in some of the research that you guys had done. If there was 2 or 3 resources that our listeners should jump on, what would those be?
Well, I didn't write a book, but I wrote a pretty good article, and it's the history of deuterium depletion.
It's a booklet, okay?
Booklet. But it's great if you want to know the history of this, where it came from, and it's just a great read. And then
that's available on your website.
Yeah, that's on the website. And then for more more serious researchers, doctors, whatnot, biohackers, so forth and so on, that want to get into the science of this, they can go to deuteriumdepletion.org. And that site hosts all the studies and everything that's been written on it academically and otherwise.
Beautiful. Well, Victor, Robert, I appreciate all of the knowledge and wisdom bombs that you guys have dropped. I am excited to get some light water myself and start integrating it into my routine, because I've done a lot of water hacking over the years, and this is one thing that I haven't done. And speaking with both of you, it seems like it may be the most important thing that I could do. So thank you for that. And guys, go to drinklightwater.com. Any other place that our listeners can follow you guys or stay up to date on things that you're working on, or is drinklightwater.com the best place to do that?
Well, to follow us, but we do quite a lot of podcasts, okay? Among, the podcasters that many of your audience knows, and you certainly know. So you can look for us on some of the podcast sites, et cetera, et cetera.
Beautiful.
And we handle not just deuterium depleted water, but I do specials on water purification, hydrogen, et cetera.
Very nice. Well, I appreciate both of you coming on and sharing your wisdom and the hard work and science that you're putting out into the world. Thank you so much. And would love to have you both back.
Great interview. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
What's up, guys? Anthony here, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Biohacking Secrets Show. One of my favorite things to do is helping men and women like you feel what it's like with the body you've always wanted and all-day energy that starts the moment you wake up and doesn't quit. Over the past decade, we've created a proprietary health assessment that helps me to identify the unique toxicities and deficiencies that may be holding you back from the life that you deserve. And what we've discovered in doing this with now thousands of CEOs, executives, professional athletes, businessmen, Hollywood celebrities, and entrepreneurs is that there's always room for improvement and optimization. Whether you're already performing at a high level or you have that feeling inside your heart that you're capable of more, the single fastest way to unlock your potential is to upgrade your mind and your body. And there's no program on earth that does that faster or to a greater magnitude than our one-on-one consulting program at www.biohackingsecrets.com/coaching. We start with our proprietary health assessment that screens you for vitamin deficiencies like A, D, magnesium, iron, etc., high cholesterol and heart disease, high blood pressure, digestive disorders, hidden infections like Lyme, Epstein-Barr, parasites, SIBO, Candida, and more that can just drain your energy in the background, especially if you don't know about them. anxiety, depression, and cognitive disorders, autoimmune disease, adrenal fatigue, thyroid issues, mold toxicity, heavy metals, environmental toxins, and other genetic risk factors like MTHFR, APOE status, your glutathione production, and many more. We even recommend the specific tests that I use with my one-on-one clients if they're relevant for you in figuring out your biological age and identifying those key areas and opportunities that can take your life to the next level. From there, we create a customized game plan along with a personalized supplement protocol to help you optimize your weight and energy at the cellular level. And for our platinum clients, we even include a personalized workshop with me in Delray Beach, Florida. Most of the year, this program's full with a waiting list, but we just had a couple spots open up and I wanted to offer them to the listeners of the Biohacking Secrets show first. So if you're interested in seeing what it might look like for us to work together, head over to www.biohackingsecrets.com/coaching. That's www.biohackingsecrets.com/COACHING and fill out the short application form. If you're pre-approved, you'll be given the opportunity to book a time to connect with someone on our team and see if it's a fit. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, and I look forward to potentially going on this journey together.